On January 18th at Aqueduct, Ramon Dominguez took a scary spill, and a lot of people have been worried, and the outpouring of emotion and concern for him has been overwhelming. But we're so fortunate to have Ramon Dominguez here with us today to talk a little bit about what's gone on since the accident. And Ramon, you look terrific. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Richard. I feel great as well. Thanks.
Well, that brings us to how is your physical and emotional state now since the accident?
It has been great. The only thing that I don't have much recollection, or I don't really remember a whole lot, is of course I don't remember anything about the day of the accident or even being taken to the hospital. And I spent 4 days at the hospital, which I don't know whether it was between medications or just the type of trauma that I had, but I do not remember a whole lot about that. Right after that, I was moved to two different rehab centers, and I remember pretty much everything about that.
So you weren't truly aware of the full severity of your injury at first. What was your reaction when you found out the news that you had a fractured skull?
Well, I mean, of course, in this business, you have to deal with your share of injuries, and I had a previous skull fracture back in '98. Now it seems to me that this one was probably a little more severe. Having said that, I wasn't overly concerned because the doctor from the get-go felt like I was going to recover well, and they were very happy with my condition even from the beginning. They said that I was exceeding their expectations, and I really didn't last too long in both of the rehab centers that I was at. So taking things in perspective, I felt very fortunate and very blessed to be feeling as well as I do.
You know, I don't think a lot of people realize it's almost easier on the person that's injured, um, and harder on their family, their support system, and you have a tremendous support system. And I know your wife Sharon had to make a lot of decisions on your behalf, but maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that support system and the help that you have.
Sure, I definitely agree with you. It's probably a lot tougher or harder on the ones that are close to you, that feel like are kind of out of control and they really want to do more for you. In my case, as I mentioned to you before, the first few days I was so out of it that I don't really remember a whole lot. And in the moment, of course, there was not even time for me to be concerned about the injury or the prognosis. So as things move along and I started feeling better and being able to recognize the injury, still my concern level was pretty low. I guess in a way I felt like I was in good hands, and the other part of it is that I was always feeling pretty well. I have been very fortunate to count not only with the help of my wife Sharon, as you mentioned, but also my mother came from Venezuela, and my sister, who currently lives here in North Carolina, came to help with the kids and myself. So I was always really well pampered, and I really didn't have to make any decisions or anything.
Well, speaking of the kids, I mean, you have two young boys, and you know, the emotional impact on them, I'm certain, was tough, but they must have been thrilled when you got home.
They were very happy. Actually, the first time I saw them is when I came back home. I went to pick them up with my wife at the bus stop, and they were super excited to see me. And it was funny because although we are not as religious as we should be, we of course believe in God and try to really follow as much as we can the Christianity path. But I found it sort of funny in a way that the first night I went to say goodnight to them in bed, my youngest one, which is only 6.5, said to me, "We gotta pray because that was the reason that you came back home." So it made me feel very well, and for sure I felt very much appreciated by them.
Yeah, that's terrific. And what about now? I know you're in therapy. You're doing therapy. What does your therapy entail? How many days a week? How many hours a day?
Sure. This new place that I'm at, we were scheduled to do therapy 3 times a week, and all therapies are different ones, from occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy, which really involve more. I know I was gonna forget this word, but cognitive. So it's more like thinking and memory and that sort of thing. So I feel like the prognosis the first week I went there was excellent. Matter of fact, the physical felt like they could basically not do a whole lot for me, so therefore I need to contact my doctor again because they feel like I should be at a higher level, and maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that being an athlete, your level of fitness is pretty high. But both the occupational and the speech therapy were also very happy with my not only my condition but how well I'm doing, considering that it has been only less than a month since the injury.
It's remarkable that only been less than a month. It feels like it's been longer. Other than the therapy, how have you been filling your days? Have you started watching races again already?
I have tried not to, and in the past, anytime that I have been off due to an injury, I try not to because, of course, there is so much passion in my part. I mean, as far as racing, I, I love racing as much as I know you do, that I don't think that I'm going to gain a whole lot of benefit from watching races. If anything, it's going to make me want to do even more than I do right now. So I have been trying to share the downtime with my kids and my wife and my mom who's still here. So there hasn't really been too many times where I had the time to sit down and think back about the accident. When I do, I feel just very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in right now.
I have to ask this question. It's obviously secondary to your well-being, but is there any sort of timetable for your return to riding?
Well, when I was at my previous rehab center, that was one of the questions that I asked a couple of times to the doctors, and I feel like maybe it was too early for them to tell me you will be able to come back in X amount of time. So I sort of captured that right away, and from then on, I just decided to just focus on my uh, exercises and my physical therapy and trying to get better. Uh, but of course, I don't know whether it's you will call it selfish or just foolish, but I'm definitely dying to know when I can come back to ride horses. I feel physically capable of running a marathon, as I mentioned to one of the therapists, and mentally, if I'm not the sharpest, I don't think it was due to the injury. I probably have been this way always. So I feel pretty good, and God willing, I can come back to ride race horses in a short amount of time.
Well, it's that spirit, that will that has made you the Eclipse Award champion jockey the last 3 years in a row, and last year setting a record for money won. And I don't know if you've seen the Eclipse Awards with Johnny Velasquez and Javier Castellano accepting your Eclipse Award for you, because it was the day after the accident, and it was very emotional for me to watch, and I think it underscored how competitive guys can be, but how much jockeys really care about each other.
Certainly, I agree 100% with you. Somebody showed me a clip of that part of the Eclipse Awards. That was actually the only part that I have been able to watch, and I felt it was very emotional as well. Um, it's not only that Javier and Johnny are a good friend of mine, but as you mentioned, when I'm not really an sport expert by any means, but I always find it pretty ironic that we have to compete for the very same thing, but at the same time be confined in a closed area and sort of protect each other out there. So it's a dual, I don't know what's the right word, but
It is just a fine balance between that competitiveness and, like you said, that supporting each other.
absolutely. And I feel like we managed to do pretty well, considering that we, once again, competing for the same thing, but there is the respect and there is the admiration, and both of the guys that you just mentioned, Johnny and Javier, were very quick to call me and have been very concerned about my improvements, and I was just very glad to know that they were there representing me in a way for the Eclipse Award.
Well, Ramon, you have so many fans, and not a day goes by that people don't stop me and ask about you. What would you like to say to the racing fans, all the people that are pulling for you and waiting for your return?
Sure, well, first of all, I would like to thank them all because, as you mentioned, it has been really overwhelming this time, how many positive responses I have gotten from people wishing me well, and it seems like every single one not only are wishing me well, but they are stating in their letters that they know that I'm going to be okay in a short amount of time, and they're pretty positive. So that made me feel great. And many of them also make contribution to the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund and on my behalf, and that made me feel great because, of course, there are many jockeys who unfortunately got hurt badly starting their career, and financially they can't really afford to even pay their bills. So the PDJF is there for them, and I'm just very happy to know that it wasn't only my family and close friends that reached out to me, but so many great fans, and many of them that I never really personally had the opportunity to meet, but they sure made me feel like family through their letters, and I really have felt special through these times.
Well, everybody cares so much about your own because you're one of the classiest individuals that has ever graced the saddle, and
Thank you.
you look terrific, and it's just great to be able to talk to you today.
Excellent. It feels just as good to talking to you, and hopefully next time we'll be talking by the winner's circle after winning a race.
Sounds good.
Thanks.